Hello everyone, welcome back to yet another entertaining month in the banter era. The era where the Tories are so goddamn terrible, they are facing electoral collapse, yet still somehow seem preferable to Labour. And with that, we might see the man, the myth, the legend, Boris Johnson return to his rightful place as Prime Minister of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. The man is a machine that cannot be stopped. And for those of you that missed the big news, yes, Liz Truss has been kicked out of office just 44 days into a premiership. And I'm not going to really bother with that much news because essentially this has just become a big pub quiz question. And there's much funnier things to go through. Though I will say I don't really blame Liz Truss for the position that she was put in. She has inherited a terrible economic situation. She gave out a mini budget that wasn't the worst thing in the world and honestly is probably better than anything else we're going to get. And then she had to inherit a media that absolutely hate her, what she stands for, and seems to think that not cutting taxes is libertarian. And being a libertarian is quite dirty in the United Kingdom. You're either a socialist or you're a freak. So yes, not an enviable position. She had half a party trying to topple her, and this is where it's got them. But The Spectator does have a good article on why Liz Truss had to go. Once Truss renounced Trussonomics, what was there left? Yes. One of the big parts of the campaign was we are not going to be giving you tax hikes, only for her to U-turn on all that and give us planned tax hikes. The Liz Truss survival plan was, in the end, unworkable. She not only hired her enemies, Grant Shapps and Jeremy Hunt, but let them govern, tearing up her policies while she held on to number 10. She thought the Tory right had no candidate to replace her with, and the Tory left would be happy because there'd been a Cameron restoration. So yes, it was a humiliation, but one that was supposed to keep her in post. Could it last? Earlier this week I spoke to several MPs who could see Truss surviving in this way, as Theresa May did after the 2017 election, staggering on, zombie-like, politically undead, waiting for a party to agree on who to succeed her. Given how divided they are, that could be a very long wait. And one that frankly I can't see being resolved, unless there is absolute electoral oblivion, or in a better case scenario, one where Labour win but not by a huge majority. Or maybe even a Labour minority, who knows. So getting rid of Truss hasn't actually resolved the problem, but it does save her from any further humiliation. Which, as I say, I think is just the unfortunate position she was in. It was very high risk, high reward, and unfortunately she had absolutely everything going against her. But goddamn, I still respect the hell out of it. However, yesterday was a shambles. Some of the most disgraceful scenes ever seen in Parliament, which is why it's very entertaining. They made her carry on unviable. Earlier in the day, she sacked her Home Secretary for sending an email on the wrong account. That was never a credible story. The two fought over immigration and Suella Braverman had the manifesto on her side. And even Dominic Cummings was coming out saying basically everyone else in the cabinet does this as well. So it's pretty clear that Suella Braverman's just been fired. But anyway, Truss had not, in the end, assembled a coalition around her policies. It was a political cage fight, which risked becoming a real fight in the voting lobbies. MPs were being threatened with the sack unless they voted against their manifesto on fracking. It was bedlam. Number 10 had no authority. Given that Truss was a prisoner of Hunt, so in the end it came down to this. If Truss has renounced Trussism, what is left? There was no answer. And there was a risk that every day would bring deeper humiliation. The wheels fell off yesterday, so Truss had to accept that her game was over. No, the Tories aren't ready to work out what would come next, but this week's appalling scene showed that they could no longer have this luxury. So yeah, it's been quite a mess. I mean, it got so bad that all sorts of rules were being broken by MPs this day. Chris Bryant alleges MP manhandled into voting with government on Sky News, and there was even a picture from the lobby in Parliament, which, by the way, goes against the rules, and every MP knows it. Speaking to Sky News, Chris Bryant claimed he witnessed chaos in Westminster as MPs were unaware of whether they would lose the whip for voting against the government or not. There was a group including several cabinet ministers who were basically shouting at them, and at least one member was physically pulled through the door into the voting lobby, the MP alleged. Now, this is completely out of order in our system. He went on, I've never ever seen an individual member physically manhandled into a division lobby. I know that Theresa Coffey was in the group and Jacob Rees-Mogg was in the group and that the group all moved forward with that member. He alleged that the MP in question who was manhandled was Alex Stafford. Stafford has since argued he was simply having a frank and robust conversation with ministers about his views on fracking. And if he's anti-fracking, then they were right to manhandle him. So the absolute scenes at Westminster have indeed meant that we are now in the middle of another Tory leadership contest. Hooray! Not going to do a massive profile on everyone who's going for it, but I am going to show you this chances of becoming the next leader from the Times, and just long story short, looks like it's going to be Rishi Sunak. The man who has good support from MPs but has absolutely no support from the party members. Well, I'm wrong to say no support. He does have some support. It's just that majority support was for Liz Truss, and half the party couldn't accept that. And now they've put us in a bigger mess than if we had just supported Liz Truss. But the eagle-eyed of you will notice that there is a Boris Johnson chance there. A small one, but by God, I am going to push for the madman to go back into office. But before I get fully into why I think there's actually a good chance he'll be the next Prime Minister yet again, let's do a quick profile on each of the candidates from The Spectator. So Rishi Sunak, the obvious favourite, but there's still a sizable anti-Sunak caucus in the party. The detractors may call him Fishy Rishi, but his supporters crow that he's got the big calls right. Which, once again, okay, he was right that there was chaos with Liz Truss's cabinet, but the thing is that a big reason for that is that half the party were trying to sabotage it. They weren't supporting her policies publicly, and they were of no help whatsoever in trying to make the argument that lower corporation tax especially means better economic growth. Because clearly they don't believe that, because they'd rather Rishi come in and hike it up, which stunts growth. Next up, naturally, it's BoJo, can at least claim some kind of mandate, having won the 2019 election, as Churchill's biographer Johnson will have been all too keen to encourage talks of a comeback. But what about that privileges investigation? Well, a lot of people don't care, they just want stability within the party. Penny Mordaunt next missed out on the final two last time by a handful of votes. Since then, she has become the face of the ascension of King Charles as leader of the House. Sunak backers are pushing a pact with Penny, but surely she craves the premiership herself. And to be honest, if we're not going to have Johnson, Penny's the next realistic choice that I'd be happy with. Ben Wallace, one of the few fixtures of British politics, is Ben Wallace leading the Conservative Home Cabinet rankings table. But will the personal reasons which kept him out last time prevent him running again? Well, hopefully, because they need 100 MPs to back them by Monday, otherwise they're not going to be in the final say. And the party are yet again voting, so I hope they throw another spanner in the works. Kemi Badenoch, who is probably my absolute favourite, but I don't think has a good chance of getting in. The dark horse of the last race, she won fans in the grassroots and the media with her tough-talking, no-nonsense approach. Yet with just 2 months cabinet experience, she might be back Sunak in exchange for a better post in his top team. And honestly, I will probably take that. It's probably the best case for Kemi, just to back someone else and try and get in the cabinet, because I was quite happy with her position that she got under Truss. Suella Braverman, a staunch Brexiteer and toast of the ERG, the European Research Group, the pro-Brexit side of the Tory party. She clashed with Truss over migration commitments, but given the higher threshold this time, can Braverman, who couldn't even muster 30 votes in July, really go the distance? And I hope she doesn't. I hope she comes back as Home Secretary and has a bit more time to actually bloody do something. And finally, a lettuce. Polls better than any of the leading contenders and shown to have more shelf life than the current incumbent. For those of you outside the UK, this was a big meme, the Daily Star, as Liz Truss was starting to wobble with her premiership, just live streamed a lettuce to see if the lettuce would outlast her. And guess what? The lettuce won. And to be honest, having a lettuce in charge doing absolutely nothing is probably better than having anyone in number 10. But since that's not realistic, let's see why my boy BoJo has a good chance. For a start, he was clearly quite serious about running for leadership. As soon as he heard that Liz Truss was making an announcement at 1:30 on Thursday the 20th of October, he was straight on a plane back early from his holiday in the Dominican Republic. And typically I'd say, oh, the best person for the job as a leader is someone who doesn't actually want it, but in this case I'm willing to make an exception. Someone who is willing to sacrifice quality family time like this to come back and try and be the hero of the country is actually going to try and be the hero of the country. Now, is he going to make the wrong decisions in doing that? Almost definitely. But he's going to make some right ones, and when it comes to between some right and a lot wrong, or everything wrong like with Keir Starmer, I'd much rather have the former with Johnson. So that's number one. Number two is that he seems to be quite popular even with the Tory party members, because the members can generally see what this was, why he was kicked out in the first place. Yeah, he was having a few scandals, and yeah, they were being machine gunned out and out and out, and even I was struggling to see how he could survive. But given the problems going on over at the other side that were being completely ignored by the media over at Labour, I mean, they've just had to kick someone out of the party for Sexual misconduct, which is things that Boris Johnson had to do as leader of the Tory party while he was in charge. But there's no cause, obviously, for Keir Starmer to resign as leader of the Labour Party because, quite frankly, he's just the Blairite candidate. Even though Boris Johnson is too, but it's complicated. It's because the Labour is full of socialists, so it will push the Blairites to the left, whereas the Tory party is actually relatively right-wing compared to Blairites, so it'll move them to the right. But anyway, enough of that. The real reason I won't vote for Labour is because they support nonces. And yes, I do refuse to elaborate, because it's time to talk about why Boris Johnson, I think, is the only choice for the Tories. The Tory donors are rushing to jump on the back Boris Johnson bandwagon. There is support among some Tory MPs for Johnson to run again for leadership, only 6 weeks after he left number 10. Because quite frankly, he was good as a Tory party leader, and he was honestly a decent PM. I've said this for a while. Yes, he's got problems, but when you look back on the 20th to 21st century prime ministers, he's probably actually in the top half. So Boris Johnson has assembled the support of dozens of Tory MPs, former donors, party activists, and the team that helped him win the election in 2019 as he attempts to make it to the final two of the Tory leadership contest. The former Prime Minister is expected to end his holiday in the Dominican Republic and return to Britain as early as today, as he attempts to an extraordinary political comeback. It only took 6 weeks and we're already missing him. While Johnson has not publicly confirmed that he will stand, he has told close allies that he intends to and asks them to help orchestrate his campaign. He's already secured the public support of more than 24 MPs, with his whipping operation claiming the endorsement of more than 40. One of those helping to gather support said, "It's now looking likely he's going to get 100. There are lots of MPs who will be natural supporters who haven't declared yet. If he gets through the membership vote, he's probably the favourite." And that is absolutely true from what I hear from Tory members. I say that, I became a Tory member 2 days ago, but it's too early for me to vote, I'm afraid. But this is an incredibly popular decision within the Tory party as it is. And when it comes to the issues that Liz Truss apparently caused, even though I am still going to stand for evermore on the hill that it was the anti-Truss caucus that overturned the decision of the party members, it looks like he is really a steadying and stable leader contestant here. And honestly, I hope he gets the 100, and I hope he wins the party membership vote. And this time round, hopefully, we'll have someone who actually wants a free market as his chancellor, rather than Rishi Sunak. A Back Boris campaign group was set up on WhatsApp yesterday by a major party donor. By last night, it had more than 300 members ranging from Tory MPs and senior party activists to party donors. It also includes hundreds of grassroots Tories. He's just so popular. He's the most popular candidate. I can't wait for him to come back. Ben Elliott, the former party chairman, is among those backing him. David Canzini, Johnson's former advisor, who also worked for Liz Truss, is also in the group, as is Sir James Duddridge, his former parliamentary private secretary, who is gathering support among fellow MPs. Johnson was last night responding positively to messages urging him to run, sources said, and was engaging with people from the old phone number he was forced to ditch after it was leaked online. A sign says supporters that he is organising a leadership campaign. Please, please. I'm praying for a timeline with absolute scenes and absolute banter from him coming back and winning a snap election. The salt would be insane, and that's all I live for at the moment. And the thing is, it's not just within the Tory party where he's relatively popular. This is just one example from the BBC of Vox Pop saying, yeah, it's all a mess, just get Boris Johnson back, it's what we want.
This is the Midlands, and I'm speaking to small, medium businessmen every morning of the week, and almost to a man this morning. They're all saying the same thing. They want to see Boris Johnson returned to where the British electorate put him. He was removed by MPs. I think he's had his yellow card. He's done his time in the sin bin, in rugby terms. It's time for him to come back and put in the performance of his life.
And that's pretty much where I'm up to with it, because there's absolutely no realistic way that anyone I actually like is going to get into the position. So it may as well be the person that makes the left look like a load of whinging loonies. And if that means Boris Johnson returns to number 10, then let Boris Johnson return to number 10. I always love a redemption arc.
And for those MPs who have a problem with that, because they're a bit nervous about everything, he will be giving the opposition sleepless nights, because he's the one man who can turn it round for the Conservative Party. And you can look your constituents and the opposition in the eye and says that man has a mandate. So if you're watching Boris, your country needs you.
And I am absolutely on that man's side. Boris, your country needs you. And what did he do when that call was implied. He cancelled his holiday, came straight back from the Caribbean, and decided, yes, I am going to be the leader once again. However, before we get too white-pilled about this, if you can call it that, the Times does point out quite an issue that Johnson may have. One of the major obstacles to him standing is the threat of being suspended as an MP due to the investigation by the Commons Privileges Committee into whether he lied to Parliament over lockdown parties. If found guilty and suspended for more than 10 days, he could face a recall vote and a difficult battle for his Uxbridge and South Ruislip seat. In other words, he better pray that he is found to have not lied to Parliament. Because we need the memes, Boris. If nothing else, we need the memes. But despite that, I am still going to hold out hope for Boris Johnson. People seem to want him back, the party never really seemed to want to get rid of him, and it appears to just be wet MPs, i.e. the wrong side of the Tory party, that wanted to get rid of him. Well, I'm praying he comes back like the Terminator and kicks out all the people that made his life miserable over eating some cake during lockdown. That is my dream timeline, but obviously we're not going to get that. But, well, I may as well live in hope anyway. So with that, that's everything I had for you today. Once again, thank you very much for watching, and until next time, goodbye.